This is your host, Jania Butler, and I'm here with my co-host.
A.B. Butler. You already
You,
know. Back in the
you
game
know,
of entertainment.
and we're talking about the government shutdown and everything in between. Okay, so the government shutdown, the federal government is the largest. This is the largest shutdown in U.S. history. So that's the other thing that we've got to put on. Are people trying to get his story marks and go down in history? Now, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the leader of the House of Congress, and Chuck Schumer, is the leader of the House in the Senate, and they're both from New York. So they are kind of controlling what's going on. So we got this little New York attitude going on. We not going to shut down. But 8 Senate Democrats said, listen, this is not working. Where the American people are hurting. You're stopping them during the Thanksgiving season. What are you doing? We've got to come up with something next. So they only needed 8 Democrats out of the 50, I think three about out of the 100 out of the 50 something Democrats that are that are there in the Senate, and they only needed 8. So the 8 crossed the line and they changed the game. All white folks. I want to put that out. Was no black people that crossed the line or said that because they're trying to hold the line to get what they want. Now what it needs to happen is it goes back to the House, which is leader Hakeem Jeffries, which I really think right now Hakeem is feeling himself power-wise, and I'm not feeling the way that he's going with this because he's talking and his eyes and he's blinking and he's got his little shindig down, but he's trying to fight these Republicans and say that he's fighting for the people, but I think that it's a little ego in here at this point. So I'm a little nervous. And so this is the longest shutdown in US history. Okay, they've never let food stamps lapse or anything like that. And so everybody got their food stamps. Air traffic controllers are going back to work. But now look, the planes, have you seen what's going on at the airports? The planes are
You gotta tell
still
me.
delayed. It was like 7,000 planes delayed. And this is because they couldn't get along and they couldn't sit down. No, I don't want to hear that. If you're getting paid over $175,000, then you figure it out and you guys sit down, and we should not be touched. The
This
American
is
people should not be going through this because y'all don't want to talk.
this a
The
G check.
Democrats. That's a G check.
They getting all this money right now for. So right now, in a couple more months, they scheming how to do it. They're gonna put the robots in there.
No, well, they're not going to put the robots in Congress, but
Yeah, they need
January
to. Maybe,
30th,
maybe, maybe the robots would be a better.
they would do a better
I
job
think
because,
they'll do a better job. But you got to remember, everything is run by a man or a woman. So
okay,
you got when things is one person got the power. Look, great example. Donald Trump,
right.
he's in power. So you get one man that can control all these robots, and he got the evil mind. It don't matter. It don't
iRobot,
matter.
and you could
Yeah,
tell him to do some wicked stuff. You're right about that. That iRobot
exactly.
is
That's the
now coming
G
to
check.
life.
Yeah,
That is
just
a G check.
G check.
So,
Just watch a lot of movies. Don't get caught up on who's the actors. Read
right,
between the lines.
right. So all of these people, some of them had furloughs, which means that they didn't get paid. Then they're not going to get paid. Some of them missed paycheck, and some of them had all this caused disruption in the services. And now they're still trying to figure out whether or not they didn't get to the bottom of it. So we sat here, and they still didn't come up with the reason why. And Hakeem Jeffries is calling it the Republican shutdown, and the Republicans are calling it the Democrat shutdown. Now, personally, I believe that the Democrats held the line. They're the ones who don't have the power to do anything. They needed the whole time the Republicans were on the table, and they were like, listen, come to the table. We'll pass this clean bill and then talk about what you want to talk about
What's so
after this.
What's so clean about the G check? What's so clean?
Well, because it's already passed. So what happened was, so remember the big beautiful bill, right, that they were talking about, right? This is where this all stems from. So the big beautiful bill that they huh
The big, beautiful
Yeah,
bill.
whatever. And to the right of it, you got Hakeem Jeffries talking about it's the big ugly bill, right? So you got these two sides. So what happened was the House, the Democrats do not have power. Okay, they can't vote anything in, they can't do anything, they're at the whim of the Republicans, right? So what happened was when they passed this bill, so they passed the bill in the House, then the bill goes to the Senate. Now the Senate did what they call a filibuster, and the Senate did what they call a filibuster, and that filibuster says we're not going to vote, we're not showing up. So the Senate Democrats decided to say, listen, we're not doing anything until you do this, right? But it didn't have anything to do what they were holding them up for. So they were trying to bring something in and say, well, we're going to use this filibuster to stop you because we don't have the power, and we'll sit this out. So they sat it out for 40 days and still for nothing but getting the attention of the American people. But let me tell you what they did do. On Tuesday, November 5th, which was the last election in the United States, on that day, the Democrats swept a lot of seats across it. Now, they didn't sweep the congressional seats that they're looking for because the Democrats need to get back in power for 2026. And so November 26th is the midterms. And so that's 2 years when Trump has done his first 2 years, and it's the midterm election, and they are trying to flip the House again. So they held this out so they can get the American people's attention because, in our community, the only thing you could do is stop our money to pay attention to politics. So that's what they did, and the Democrats did that. The Republicans didn't do it. The Republicans didn't play along with them like, many people wanted them to, but the Democrats basically did that. Okay. So everybody really suffered. And so now let me just tell you about the air traffic controllers, because I fly a lot and I was on planes and I was in the airport, and it was horrifying, and it's scary too to think that the traffic controller didn't get paid for the last 30 days and I'm flying the plane.
G-check. If I was him, I'd be sitting there eating, some. Oh man, I'll be eating something tasty
Well,
and just
that's what they were doing
and
essentially. And so
yeah.
now all the planes are backed up. So amid the shutdown, the federal administration, the FAA, and the transport leadership say flight cancellations and reductions happen because of staffing shortfalls among all traffic controllers. The Sean Duffy, who's the transportation secretary, has publicly flagged that controllers who called in sick, because there was a lot of people who called in sick too, and or didn't show up, might face some consequences. Okay, so travel and logistics issues, more than 7,000 flights were canceled in the recent days due to the staffing issue. And this is a good bridge to talk about responsibility. Whose responsibility is it when America moves around and now you decided we're not going to vote until they come up with something for the American Care Act, right? The Affordable Care Act that we put in place that is going to balloon on the people. So now they want the Republicans to fix their issues. So I don't know about that.
This is a G-check. Why? Why? Congress, senators, the president, whatever. They've been in this position for so long. Why we can't get it right? You know what I mean? We still is on some hate. We still on some hate. We keep playing and we keep and I don't feed into the Democrats, the Republicans. I look at them, they both the same. Because at the end of the day, I could go on a golf and run into every last one of them you name, playing golf with one another, playing with judges, people lives. If I hit this, I give them a break. You get where I'm coming from? So
Right.
it's like we keep we the news. We keep selling dreams to America.
Right.
But we got to be the dream wake up and stop falling into this trap and figure out people. We got to figure a way where we can't keep letting these people take from us and controlling our lives. We really got to find a way to change that because there's too much of evil in high seats. That's a G check.
That's a pure G check. And that's a big issue when you are, thinking in the manner that you're thinking, because there's people like, okay, so Mamdani, he ran because, I mean, he won because he had good money, and they played on the fact that people were going through their exchanges, and he won on that. He won on the fact that people don't want um people want healthcare. But let's talk about that too, cousin, because now remember your law. What was your law? What was the law called? What do we call it? um about elected officials that
Oh, if they don't do right, lock them
yeah,
up.
lock
Lock
them
them
up. I
up.
forget what
Yeah.
we called it, but we'll we'll
Call it
we'll
a
think.
G check. We call it a G check lockup.
That's not what we called it, but I'll go
Listen,
back
don't
and look at
matter. Yeah.
that. But while the government is shut down, where does that leave everyday Americans? And so did they consider that? They considered that. They know that we'll be watching them. And, like I said, Hakeem Jeffries, they're now trying to figure out who is going to be the Democratic candidate for president 2028. Because if Trump doesn't find out a way to run for a third term, then
Oh.
it's going to be open to anybody, right? So you have former Vice President Kamala Harris. She's up for the running. She's talking. You got Hakeem Jeffries. He's talking, but Hakeem, they're going to vote him out, I believe, after all of this goes through. Then you've got Wes Moore, Governor Wes Moore out of Maryland. He looks good. He's talking good. So there's a lot of candidates, black and white. You've got
Why we don't
the
G check?
governor
Why
of
we don't get Flavor Flav to be the president? How about that? We got all these other.
I love
We
Flav,
yeah,
and he would
exactly.
give love out, and he would put together a good team. But I guess this is where we're going with it. Remember, The Rock wanted to run for president
Yeah,
too.
you know.
You got
Why
The
why
Rock.
can't we run for president? You
We
know what I
can, we
mean?
can.
Yeah,
But we
we
need the money. So
yeah.
that's the big thing, is the
Well,
money.
listen,
So we
people,
have
this
to
is
be able
G
to
check.
wield $1
Vote
billion.
me in for president, and I'll make sure everything what I say is facts.
Well, it'll be $1 billion. We gotta be able to raise $1 billion just to run. If we raise $1 billion, we could win. And but we've got to figure out who's going to give us that money, continuous to give us that money, because our community, the black community, is not heavy on giving political donations, because we don't understand why we're giving them, right? And so we have to get definitely in tune more, because what the hell is going on, right? So the other
Yeah.
piece is that Mamdani, he lied. Okay, we're going to go to a break in a second, but we're going to talk about all the lies, and where AB Butler is now going to recommend them for lockup after the lie. So we'll go to a commercial, and we'll be right back with your New American Perspective here on Millennium News 24.